A calm individual who enjoys the comforts of peace and quiet, who is very serious and practical when it comes to situations, who is just a normal man that is weighed down by the burdens of the constant day-to-day lifestyle he lives. These are all the characteristics that perfectly describe a suit and tie wearing salary man, working 9 to 5, clocking out, and then waking up the next day to do it all over again. Nanami, in a shadow of doubt, unlike many characters in anime, for that matter, is actually one of the characters that is actually very relatable, and one of whom I found many qualities of his that I myself resonate with and share. This is because of the realness that you can relate to, that not many other characters in anime depict. He isn't looking to become the strongest person ever or attain a level of achievement that many other anime protagonists aim for. And there's nothing wrong with trying to become the strongest or the best. I'd say that it adds more excitement to the character and more character to him. But in many cases, such as Gojo, who has this massive goal to save the world from corruptness, it really just takes away from the norm or the average person, which is why it is less relatable than that person who just wants to live for the sake of getting time off to enjoy the finer things in life, which almost everyone would want to have, making this a more realistic and therefore more relatable goal to a wider demographic. Although Nanami sees adulthood as something that stole away his youth from him, Nanami doesn't look at adulthood as this one-off event that takes place and then boom, you go from boy to a man in an instant. No, Nanami, he believes that it is the accumulation of many of these small inconveniences in your life that bring you to this point, stated in his conversation with Yuji, where he tells him that finding more and more stray hairs on your pillow than before, your local store not carrying your favorite bread, experiencing those little losses is what help people grow into adults. This is true. As you age, you soon begin to learn that life is full of all of these small problems that most times are thrown at us from out of nowhere, like a flat tire, your lights going out, or the hot water not working for some reason. Although I know this statement might seem far-fetched at first, many people, not just adults in particular, are subject to many minor inconveniences routinely, very commonly. The result of you dealing with these challenges and ultimately learning what the best course of action is what helps you define you as a capable individual who is able to overcome these minor challenges. And in the chapter, Nanami doesn't completely agree that Yuji is in fact an adult as of yet, as he hasn't really experienced much of these inconveniences that help shape him as an adult. Although Nanami is seen as a very pessimistic individual who sees missions as a negative burden that he would rather live without, but oftentimes his negativity would be overturned with the optimism that Yui expressed during their missions. And despite the gloomy nature of Nanami, as Gojo describes, it is evident that Nanami is in fact a strong and intelligent sorcerer, earning him the rank as a level 1 great sorcerer, and he really does set the perfect standard and example as to what is to be expected by grade 1 sorcerers, which is why Gojo entrusted Yuji to work alongside Nanami in order to further his growth. And despite Nanami being only a grade 1 sorcerer, he is admired by his comrades, as Yui states that during battle he would anticipate his next moves based on what Nanami would do, as he trusts that Nanami knows what's best. Nanami is also a very hardworking individual, as it further supports the 9 to 5 worker personality persona that he goes for. Heck, this guy's binding vow is literally overtime, that if he goes and works over his shift hours, meaning that if he works past 5 p.m, he will get a very high degree of curse energy that would have been otherwise limited due to the vow. This allows him to be very powerful at times, as most times he's usually operating at 80% to 90%, but with this binding vow, it allows him to operate at 120% to 130% of his capabilities. But the turning point in the anime that we see in this character occurs when Ijichi, a man with a job to help render communication throughout the barrier during the Shibuya arc, then comes Haruta, who is tasked with eliminating these men in suits, eventually finding Ijichi and injuring the man. When Nanami finds Ijichi injured, he tracks down Haruta, who is having his own fight with Kugisaki, and Nanami intervenes and ultimately save Kugisaki. And this is when we see a complete change in his demeanor from Nanami for the first time in the anime. It's like he took all of the anger he felt from seeing his comrade lifeless on the pavement and took it and released it all onto Haruto. And after this part, he eventually gets into the fight with Dagon, which he inevitably escapes, but then unfortunately gets burnt by Jogo, and then Nanami is still able to withstand this, even though the fact that this guy just got half of his body burnt by magma. He's still seen wandering Shibuya all alone, and at this point it literally seems like he has completely lost his mind. He's probably feeling burnout, like literally burnout, as he's worked so much and he's working overtime as of now, and due to all the stress and day-to-day inconveniences, as you would put it, he's been through so far, he's just completely lost his mind and is in a state of mind that's just overworked. And as Nanami walks all around all by himself, he references countries that he wished he traveled to, the beaches he wished he traveled to, the books he wished he read, and all the things that he wished he could have done that he believes were stolen from him, and how many of the experiences that he missed out on and be taken to the grave. We can all relate to this to some degree, as many times our lives get to the point where they become so busy that we don't really have the time or the energy to really do the things that we really wanted to do before. Maybe we wanted to read a book, but now we just don't feel like doing it because we're just so mentally drained. Or we want to go to the beach and just hang out for a couple of hours, but we're not able to because we have to work a job. And these are some of the things that Nanami is expressing in the scene, a longing for the things that were taken from him by being a cog in the system, as you would say. And the quote that he says, "I ran. Even though I ran away, I came back with the vague reason of finding the work worthwhile." This is a direct reference to the fact that Nanami didn't find work all that fulfilling, as why he didn't enjoy taking on missions, which we can all relate to at some point in our lives when we don't find the work meaningful, but are just doing it to make ends meet. All in all, it is quite evident that Nanami held some dreams and goals that weren't met as of yet, and ultimately took them to the grave as regrets.